Anita Peters is an accountant who resides in Toronto, Ontario. On January 14, 2021, the province-wide stay-at-home order came into effect. That morning, Peters left her home and headed to her office in Mississauga.
It's just a regular route to work every day. I was driving to work, and I usually get in a bit after 9, and I think it was about 9:15 by the time I was there. Didn't see any other police presence or cars or anything, but that's on Highway 27, and there's a bridge under the bridge as soon as you exit to Eglinton. And there were actually two police cars there and two other passengers or regular people, I guess. And I just got flagged over.
After they pulled over Peters, Toronto police officers asked her where she was going, said they were pulling people over to do a spot check. The officer was not wearing a mask, so Peters asked him to step back. After she told him she was on her way to work, they let her go and she continued driving. The incident stuck with her, and on her way home, she was cautious of officers.
Yeah, actually, when I passed the area, I kind of drove slower.
Then after she got home, she learned from watching the news that police officers said they were not allowed to see if drivers were on the road for essential reasons. That evening, Toronto Police Service published a news release at 5:15 p.m., 17 hours after the new stay-at-home order became enacted. The news release outlines the Toronto Police Service's policy on how they will enforce the stay-at-home order. They said most of the enforcement will focus on large gatherings at homes and long lines at big box stores. And they said that no element of any order provides the police with either the power to enter dwellings nor the authority to stop a vehicle for the singular purpose of checking compliance with the stay-at-home order. Peters was pulled over at Highway 27 in Eglinton, which is enforced by Toronto Police's 23 Division. We reached out to them via email, and they redirected us to the Corporate Communications. Corporate Communications said that they waited for guidelines from Ontario's Association of Chiefs of Police and the Solicitor General's office before starting enforcement of the stay-at-home order. In the email, they said officers would not be conducting spot checks to see if people were out for essential purposes. They also said they could not specifically comment on the Peters case without a name, age, and plate number, but according to Peters,
No, he didn't ask for anything.
we then turned to the Ontario government website for answers, but what we found was a statement that seemed to be at odds with the one the Toronto Police published. The Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act states that in Section 212, a police officer or other provincial offences officer who has reasonable and probable grounds to believe that an individual has committed an offence under Section 7011 of the Act may require an individual to provide the officer with the individual's correct name, date of birth, and address.
To be a little bit contradictory.
That's A.V. Levi. He's a lawyer and founder of Ticket 911. Levi is based out of Quebec but works with clients in Ontario as well. According to a Toronto Star article, a spokesperson from the Ontario Association for Chiefs of Police said that they didn't receive instructions on how to enforce this stay-at-home order even the day before it was to come into effect, and that they wouldn't issue guidelines until they were told to how by the province. It was later stated that those guidelines were given in a memo that was not made public. When we contacted the province on their instructions, we were told to ask the OACP, who we contacted but never heard back from. After the 14th, both organizations echoed the Toronto Police policy in statements to the media. Did Toronto police officers receive unclear orders, or did the orders change later in the day?
Sounds like on the spot that might have been an excuse that was used. And then after the fact, when you sort of did your homework and you called them for a comment, the official answer was, no, it wasn't a spot check. Mm-hmm. So the reality is, as you just mentioned, they should not be doing spot checks of that type for COVID.
On the 14th, 911 operators reported a flood of calls from people asking whether they would need proof of essential travel like they do in Quebec. Media outlets also reported calls asking about more clarity regarding enforcement.
And I think that's the problem here. These are new rules, new regulations, new situations. They're just putting out the rules there, and there is no real precedent or jurisprudence or cases that have been heard before where a police officer could say, can I do this? Can I not do that? And they sort of have to scratch their head and figure it out sort of on the spot, which is why there's going to be, I think, a learning curve.
The words are confusing. Yeah, because you're hearing wanting today, and then the next day you're hearing something else.
Despite her confusion, Peters thought it best to comply with the officer, even though she didn't feel she was in the wrong.
My take on cops would be, or have always been, don't engage. The less you say to them, the better for you. Because it's sort of like entrapment.
This incident has made Anita Peters more wary whenever she travels to work.
Yeah, I'm always keeping an eye out to see because, yeah, they could still stop you despite I mean, they're not supposed to, but they could stop you for anything.
On February 19th, the provincial government extended the stay-at-home order in Toronto for 2 more weeks. They say it is necessary to keep the progress on the drop in COVID-19 case numbers and protect against new emerging variants. That means for Anita Peters and other residents, they will still continue to be judicious about when they decide to leave their homes. For Say News, I'm Gabriel Hutchcraft.